Hello, how's everyone doing?
Hello, welcome everyone. Mohammed here.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. It's quiet, so I thought I might as well break the silence. I hope you're doing well, everyone, enjoying the heat. It's Texas, it must be extremely hot in Texas. Other places, I'm sure, it's warm as well. Surprisingly, Toronto, we are in Toronto, and Toronto was the hottest in Canada yesterday, and even today, they expect it to be the same. So, yeah. Hopefully next few weeks, it's going to be hot, but not as bad as, what Europe is experiencing. Hopefully not.
Yeah, it's pretty hot here. And I'm in Austin, in Texas. So, I'm also from here, so I'm a little used to it. I think the last few days to me, it's felt a little bit cooler, but that's cooler as in like 101 degrees versus 114, 16, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in Philly, but I actually moved here from Oklahoma about 5 years ago, so I definitely know what Danielle's talking about. It is not bad by my standards here. It's low 90s, but it's definitely the humidity's going, which, that's the main thing that's been really awful here. But, hopefully, I think towards the end of the week, we're going to get a little break. So.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Danielle, because, for us during winter, when it gets to minus 25 centigrade, and when it gets a little better, like minus 15 centigrade, we say, wow, we have had a heat wave, change of 10 degrees in temperature, and we'll take it. So yeah, I can understand something very similar, but at the opposite spectrum. Yeah. Are you anybody having lots of rain at your end? No. What we usually have here is when it gets very hot, then sometimes in the afternoon or evening there is usually a thunderstorm, and lightning, thunderstorm, heavy weather for maybe a half an hour, and then it clears off, and it's back to normal again. So yeah, it's getting cloudy now and getting windy. So we are expecting some thunderstorms in the evening or in the afternoon. We'll give another few minutes for participants to join, others to join before we start. So we'll start in 1 minute, and at 1:05, so that whoever is trying to join can certainly join in. So we'll start our session today. Hello, everybody. And I don't think I can say good afternoon as it is here, because it's not the same for everybody. It is morning for those in Australia or New Zealand, evening, or excuse me, nighttime in parts of Asia. And we have people joining us from all over the globe. So my name is Abdul Hamid Hathiani, and on behalf of the Center for Excellence on Equity, Empathy, and Diversity, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar on Staff Health and Wellness Boosts Productivity. But first, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge that this land on which we operate here is the land of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, the Métis and the Inuit people, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So before we start our discussion on today's topic on health and wellness, I would like to invite Dr. Mohammad Tahir to first introduce the Center for Excellence on Empathy, Equity, and Diversity. That's the center that is organizing or has been organizing webinars and doing a lot of other work in regards to empathy, equity, and diversity. Dr. Mohammed Tahir, please.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Toronto. And the idea that the Center for Equity, Diversity, and kind of excellence that is required all over and very much required in the field is the one initiative that we have taken and have a very good support from all over the professions of information handling and from the communities. The center, using the idea that is inclusion, diversity, equity, access model, and an anti-oppressive framework combined with your compassionate support, wishes to make a positive difference to our institutions and communities. And in this direction is our series of webinars that we are having to initiate a conversation, a healthy conversation, a wealthy conversation, and a wellness conversation that is landed us today at this platform of Zoom. And we are able to talk and think about the need for wellness in our work culture, or improving the wellness in our work culture. The strategy of CEED includes networking, it includes involving communities, it includes coordination with groups that are of like-minded, it includes dissemination of resources, and also research and studies in the field, which we are planning to initiate in a short while. Our board members are 9 on the platform of this organization, and they come from libraries, archives, museums, and community membership. So we are a network of libraries, organized libraries, archives, museums, and community participation. And these board members are very well established as an academic and published authors, and their publications are very intensive and extensive. And we have listed these here to give just a glimpse of what we are all about and how their contributions are making value to the profession wherever they are engaged and involved. Our activities, for example, we had the series of webinars. The first webinar was in January, the second synchronized with the Australian time frame. The third was on mindfulness last month, the cultural mindfulness. And the fourth is today, staff health, well-being boosts productivity. The forthcoming, that is the next month, we are planning to have one on interfaith, intercultural, interspiritual literacy and services in organizations, be it libraries, archives, museums, or community organizations that promote literacy for coexistence, literacy for tolerance, and literacy for peace. This will be the next month's Zoom meeting, the webinar, and we already have confirmations from these different speakers from across the globe. One speaker from Australia, one speaker from Italy, one speaker from US, and the list is including 4 people on the panel. And we had honored speakers from all over in the last 3 or 4 webinars, and they are all very supportive of this cause of empathy, equity, diversity as an organization that is very badly needed to be able to converse, to be able to dialogue, to be able to open up the thinking minds of the thought leaders, as well as the people at the lower level who need some help, some motivation, some push, and some pull. I'm thinking of everyone like myself. I am a solo librarian. So there are many more examples of solo people at museums, solo at archives, and solo in communities who are individually doing the work of community work and individually doing collective work. So we need all support and empathy and compassion for each other to be able to do the real good for the society.
So thank you, Dr. Tahir. Getting on to the webinar today. So health and wellness appears to be a simple topic. You know, you talk to somebody about health and wellness, it appears to be quite simple, yet it's a complex and continuously evolving topic when you start digging a little deeper. There are many layers such as social inequalities, poverty, lifestyle, discrimination, racism, and the environment, among others, that intersect and play an important role in health and wellness. Lately, we know the impact of COVID that has had on health and wellness of an individual, organization, or the community has been very significant. All these factors have an enormous cost to the organization, the staff, and the community if left unchecked. So the question that comes to mind is, what is the health and wellness of all those working in the various sectors and industries? And we have some experienced speakers and panelists to address this question. And without wasting much time, I would like to start by inviting our guest speaker, Imam Michael Abdur Rashid Taylor, to kick off this discussion. And just to introduce Imam Michael Abdur Rashid Taylor, he is the regional chaplain of the Ontario Correctional Services Canada. Imam Taylor has held various positions, including being the manager of spiritual and religious care at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Currently, his consultant work includes diversity, religious accommodation, and healing approaches. Imam Michael Abdur Rashid Taylor, the floor is yours. Please welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Al-Hamid, and thanks very much, Dr. Muhammad Tahir, for inviting me today to speak briefly as it may. I welcome the opportunity to have a conversation about health and wellness anytime. But before I do, I'd like to speak directly to the librarians that are part of the group. I just last night, I came back from holiday in Barbados, and it feels like my stress level is up to here already. We'll speak to that in a few minutes. But one of the things, two shocking things in my own life and my relationships with library has impacted me in, I guess, the last month or so, actually, the last week in one case and the last month in another case. The library at my school in Barbados, my secondary school in Barbados, like many people that might have had a really great basic education that prepared them for post-secondary education, tertiary education. Many of our old schools had libraries, and I don't know if my journey is like your journey. Like, what is the condition of your library at your old school, your secondary school, or your primary schools? I was shocked to learn that the library at Harrison College in Barbados is now used primarily as a book depot for the free book distribution at the school. And secondly, the public library, the Barbados Public Library, where I learned that I could now get 3 books every time I visited the library. That was in a state of disarray and has been closed. And so thus the library services, which is so very important to education for younger people and new generations, at that level in my context has been disturbed. And it's a thing that's shocking for me. And I out of that, I remember, or I bear witness to the importance of libraries in the lives of people and the work that people in libraries and conservatories do to keep education alive in the wider society. And the look at the center's work around, that speaks to not only specific groups, but also the wider society. I think that thing of disseminating knowledge is significant in the lives of everyone and really centered in the work that you do. That being said, the talk today around wellness, and what that means. In the plane last night, one of the things that that the steward did, and the stewardess, the stewards did, was to say, you know, talk about, you know, in the case of emergency, oxygen mask is going to drop from above, and, you know, place it on your face and secure yours before you attempt to help someone else. And regularly, when speaking to wellness, I like to look at that and share that experience, you know, around making sure that our own wellness is, and our own self-care is taken care of before we seek to help others. So I want to offer today that managing your own wellness, taking care of your own wellness, and seeking help for your own wellness is important if you're going to be, if someone is going to look to you to being well. You know, you will speak certainly of staff wellness and how that improves productivity. And it is a measure of function, productivity, but well-being is also one. You know, how well are people feeling rather than how much are they producing? That's significant. And in the brief, what I thought that I would do in my brief time here is to speak towards a wellness barometer, that idea of, you know, like asking yourself, well, how well am I doing, right? I think that, you know, some people depend on, am I eating well, or do I feel stressed, or am I sleeping well, or am I short-tempered? Those are the kind of regular measures that people might use around managing or paying attention to their wellness, how well they're doing, their mental wellness or their mental well-being. They look at how others might be perceiving them and how they might be perceiving others. But regularly, we don't have a measuring instrument. You know, you go to the doctor, you know, they take your pulse, you know, they put on the cuff for your blood pressure, they take out the thing that listens to your heart. I can't remember the name of the thing today. They take that thing out, they listen to it, the stethoscope. They take out the stethoscope and they measure you, right? They're tools for measuring. But regularly with our own mental wellness, with our own self-care, we don't have tools. You know, the tool might be, you know, am I snapping at my partner or my children today? Or, you know, do I feel good? But what's that? I thought that I'd offer a description of mental wellness or mental well-being, and then look at some questions around those things that can act as a kind of your own barometer, right? So I want to say that in looking at what is wellness, firstly, one can ask, you know, like, do I have a skill? So mental wellness is regarded as someone, an individual realizes their own abilities, they can cope with the normal stresses of life, they can work productively, and they're able to make a contribution to society, right? So 4 kind of broad measures: my abilities, my ability to cope with stress, am I doing productive work, am I giving to others? And as if we're going to use those 4 measures as a barometer, we can start to ask, well, today, you know, do I have the capacity to do my job? Do I have the capacity to do something that I enjoy? Do I have a gift? Am I able to do that? You know, am I coping well with my stress? Can I recover from the stress that is in front of me? Does it take a long time to do so? Am I productive in the thing that interests me? Am I productive in my work? And am I doing something that gives life to others? Am I doing something that enables others to know themselves, or to feel good, or to receive some benefit? Am I doing those 4 things? I think would be a good measure around, you know, around your own, when we look at our own selves and our own ability to function. And to ask yourself in those 4 domains, how am I doing, right? Am I living out my gift? Am I functioning well within my job? You know, how am I doing in my coping abilities around my stress or the stressors that are around me? How productive am I? And am I receiving am I feeling well in the amount that I'm able to give to others, whether those others are my family or the wider society or my colleagues, etc. Also identifying my challenges in those areas. You know, what are the challenges to my functioning? What are the challenges, or are my challenges to my ability to produce and to give to others? What are my challenges and what are my stresses? And in measuring what are my challenges, to look at defining ways that we can succeed, right? Look at defining things that we can do to get past those challenges or to work with the challenges in order to get decent outcomes. The decent outcome we hope or we expect is the outcome of working well, of feeling whole, of feeling well positioned, of feeling relaxed, of feeling the ability to give to others, or feeling like, you know, the battery that's charged up, you know, that is able to give someone else, or a full cup of milk or water that one can offer to others. That's really where we want to be when we look at our own wellness, when we look at our own self-care, when we look at our own mental centeredness. That is where we want to be. And at the times when we are off of that balance, then that's the time that we do need to start paying attention to what's going on within ourselves. Your organization's focus on big words like empathy and excellence, I think sometimes, you know, it can become huge, right? Like if I say, well, like we are interested in empathy, equity, and diversity. These are all terms or all circumstances that cause some people to become alarmed, right? Like, what am I going to lose? What am I going to gain? How is the organization going to change? Can we manage this? What's going to happen with those people? You know, all of those things, all of the centers are touch points for stress or touch points for conflict in some people's minds. And I think that you must be mindful of this. And while we are seeking in all of our lives to produce excellence, or while we are seeking to offer ourselves to others, we must know that with that comes some kind of responsibility to do things differently, but also it comes with some kind of oppositions and sometimes internal oppositions. And if we aren't mindful of or being centered ourselves, it might be easy to move away from that or to get off of our center. So in closing, I would like to remind you, that there was a time when you were centered, if you're having stress in your workplace, if there's difficulty in your workplace. Also that there are opportunities to help. Regularly, there are some opportunities to take care of yourself that are free and that are out there. Sometimes our families might be places of stress, but our workplaces might be places of peace. So take opportunities to find peace where you can find it. And I can share my document with you afterwards, but use a barometer, find a way of measuring your stress, find a way of measuring your wellness, and develop methodologies to get back to your own center, get back to the place where you imagined you would be, or the place that you were before being in a difficult place. So again, thank you very much for listening. I've chopped myself out of a meeting to be here, and I appreciate you. I wish you well in your future endeavors, for sure, and in your discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Imam Michael Taylor. A really good, way to start this discussion. You've mentioned a number of and raised a number of important points. But before we let you go, I know other than going to Barbados for wellness and what suggestions would you like to give us or share for somebody to overcome for their own well-being and for their own good health?
Well, if you are a Facebook friend of mine, I would easily tell you, eat more mangoes. Seems like, I've been focused on mangoes for the last 3 weeks while I was in Barbados, right? But, from the Caribbean, I think that people have the idea that Caribbean people are, happy-go-lucky, we get along well with everyone, nothing bothers us. But sometimes, nothing can be further away from the truth, right? Because like you're on the edge of a climate crisis, you're the edge of all of the decisions that the bigger powers are made. So it's a stressful society to live in. But as far as what can you do, I think keep a good barometer. In my own self-care work, I focus on 4 quadrants of self-care: my physical life, what am I doing with my body? My spiritual life, what am I doing with my internal life? My emotional life, what am I doing with my heart? And my educational life, what am I doing with my brain? And finding time to spend on those 4 spheres or those 4 quadrants daily is helpful. That I do something for my body, that I do something for my inner life, that I do something for my education and my mind, my brain, and I do something that makes me feel good. Regularly, that's something for other people, right? Physical, spiritual, emotional, and educational. Find time to spend, even if it's 5 minutes a day. How can you briefly touch those spheres that remind you that they need to be taken care of, and it would obviously invite you to do more, but it would help you to remain balanced in your own functioning as a human.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Imam Michael Taylor. I think this is going to be a really good segue into a panel discussion. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we appreciate your input and what you have talked to us today. So
thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. In trying to understand the difference between health and wellness, I think we need to be a little bit clear here. Health is a state of being, whereas wellness is the state of living a healthy lifestyle. That's what I understand it to be. And so health refers to some physical, mental, social well-being, whereas wellness aims to enhance the well-being of a person. And so for many businesses, when we look at many businesses, their internal policies and undertakings are limited to addressing the wellness of their own staff, pretty much their own employees and people they deal with. There are, however, many sectors that can have an impact, not just on their own staff, but to other sectors as well and communities as well. And I believe that the libraries, archives, and museums is one such sector that can play such a big role in not only the lives of their staff, but also in the lives of other people and the communities surrounding those institutions. So in this seminar, we will explore the role of the libraries, archives, and museums in promoting health and wellness, not only within their organizations, but to have an impact on everyone around them. So to discuss how productivity is boosted through staff health and wellness, we have a very strong panel comprising of Professor Sarah Clark, Kiyomi Deards, and Danielle McGhee to dive into this important topic. And so I would like to request the participants, those who are attending, to please send me their questions for the panelists as we move on. And if you have any questions, you can certainly, ask the question as well. So without wasting much time, I would like to introduce each panelist and let them speak for about 7-8 minutes. And thereafter, we can have a panel discussion and address some of the questions that we may have. And let me start by introducing Professor Sarah Clark, who is the Dean and University Librarian at LaSalle University, podcasting at the Kind Leadership Challenge, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She has founded the Kind Leadership Guild, a side project where she empowers library and educational leaders to heal workplace trauma, defensiveness, and burnout via coaching courses and through the Kind Leadership Challenge podcast. Professor Sarah, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Dr. Sarah Clark, Dean and University Librarian at LaSalle University here in Philly. And as Dr. Hayanathi also said, I am a podcaster at the Kind Leadership Challenge podcast. Basically, when I was asked to be on this panel, I took a few minutes to reflect on wellness, not just among ourselves, just among our staffs, but among everybody, every area that we have to work with and engage with and communicate with as library leaders. And for me, I think it comes down a lot to challenging conversations. None of us are an island. We all have to interact with people. We all have to have work together with other people. And sometimes we have to have uncomfortable conversations with people, especially those of us who are in leadership positions. And in thinking about this, I really wanted to consider the question of how you can have these conversations that will get your relationship with other people to a better place, build that wellness in yourself and in your community, and lead you to the better world that we are all seeking as librarians and those in other museums and other kind of humanities organizations. And for me, it really comes down to a few phases. And the first one is getting straight in your head before your challenging conversation about what it is you need to have the conversation about, whether it is a team member who is maybe not living up to expectations, whether it is a stakeholder that you have to have a challenging conversation with because you need resources or other support that you're not getting right now, or frankly, whether it's just a patron who is not very happy about a situation and you need to have a challenging conversation about them in one way or another. And so the first thing you need to do is really get straight in your own head, kind of where you are. I really appreciated what was said earlier about tending to your own well-being and making sure that you're in the right spot in your own head before you have these challenging conversations, which can be unpleasant and can be stressful, but really the only route to long-term wellness within an organization when dealing with other people is often found on the other side of these uncomfortable conversations, found on the other side of conflict. So first, you need to get straight in your head where you are. You need to define the problem that is standing between you and a healthier organization, a healthier situation. So you need to figure out what it is, the situation that you want, what's your ideal outcome, and what is standing in the way? What's the obstacle that's standing in the way? And then once you've done that, you need to kind of turn inward. Once you've defined your problem and think about, you need to get clear in your own head. What are kind of your own feelings, your emotions around this that you need to process or deal with before you have this challenging conversation? Because it's very easy when you're in these situations and maybe you're not feeling at the peak of wellness yourself to blow your top and make a situation worse in one form or another. So you need to get real clear on what your emotions are and what your feelings are about a situation and process them. You also need to think about the facts of a situation versus the story you have been telling yourself in your head about a given challenging situation, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in these things, especially if we've already got pre-existing stress or frustration, that we make up this whole story in our heads that and we assume people have motives that they may or may not have and things like that. You need to focus on the facts around a situation and be really firm in the reality of the situation. And then from there, once you separated out the facts from the story, you can come into a situation on a more even keel and from a stance of curiosity rather than a stance of anger. So also think about planning out your conversation. That's something else I talk a lot about when I talk about mastering these challenging conversations with an eye towards wellness at the end of it. What is your goal and what are the steps you take to get out there? I actually have a little worksheet that folks can take a look at, and if you throw an email in the chat box, I'll be happy to send this to you afterwards, where you basically try to get get yourself into the other side of the conversation, the other person you're having this challenging conversation with, because you need to think about their wellness too. What might their story about these facts be? They could be interpreting things very different than you. If you're having some sort of disagreement or, anger, frustration, they probably are interpreting things different than you. Get an outside perspective. It's always good to have a trusted advisor in these situations where you're having challenging conversations and emotions are high. It can be HR, it can be a manager, it can be, if you have a leadership coach, all these different things that you can do to talk to and go from there. And, also take a look before you go into these conversations and consider what might it look like if you solve this problem that has led to this challenging conversation, and also what are the consequences if you don't solve this problem. So those are things that you can think of when you're having these difficult conversations. And the other thing I really suggest is that you almost make an outline. I mean, sometimes you have situations where you have to have a conversation immediately, but especially like with challenging patron behaviors, when you need to have a conversation with somebody at the desk, a lot of this you can plan ahead and make up a plan where you decide how you're going to talk to this person and have this challenging conversation. And what you really want to do is you want to start not by your opinion of things, not by how you're frustrated about this or that. Just say, we have this situation, and these are like the unarguable facts of the situation. Focus on the facts, focus on the stuff like a video camera would capture. And just get real clear on that, because then you can have a shared understanding of the facts, which will help bring wellness to, whatever interaction you're having between the two of them. And then you ask them for their side of the story. You listen to them, because I found in my leadership practice that most people most of the time just want to be heard. If they feel like they have been listened to, if they feel like they have been understood and respected, that's often, 75, 80% of the problem right there. If you can do that, a lot of times problems solve yourself. And if nothing else, even if it doesn't get you any forward progress, you will still have a better understanding of where they are coming from. Then you need to lay out whatever your expectations or boundaries or consequences are for this situation. Maybe you're in a situation where you have found out that your organization is going to be going through some budget reductions. Not that any of us on this call have ever had that life experience, but you can say, okay, I understand that, but the consequences of that choice are we're going to be able to do less for our patrons. We're going to be able to do less for our students in these ways, because we're going to have to make hard decisions. If you have a patron who is behaving in a manner that you can't have them behaving in because it hampers other people's, ability to use the library or safety within the library, you have to be able to say, I need you to stop doing X, or we will, kick you out or ban you or whatever it is you need to do. Not in a mean way, not in a punitive way, but just in these are the expectations I have to have. These are the boundaries and the consequences you live with. And then once you've laid all that stuff out, once you've listened to their story, once you've explained your expectations, then hopefully collaboratively, you can figure out what the next steps are and how you get from the situation as it is and what needs to change to get you to your desired goal that you're looking for. And that can be a really good kind of roadmap that you use in having these conversations. And you can either put this together on the fly if it's something that needs to happen immediately, or again, if it's something that comes up often, if you're a circulation or access services manager and you have to deal with building issues, or if you are a manager who maybe has a performance problem brewing with one of your team members and you need to have a conversation with them. You can plan this stuff ahead of time so that you are prepared for when they come up, but you also have these tools to be with them on the fly. And again, I actually have a worksheet that works through all this. It actually walks you through all these steps. I saw a few of you through your emails in the chat box. I will send this to you and share, maybe also throw in a link to my podcast if you're interested in that. And that basically is what I would say is when I was asked to be on this panel about workplace wellness, for me, so much of the biggest threat in library wellness is drama. And drama is conflict that needs to happen, but is not happening because people are too scared or too frustrated or too passive aggressive or whatever the reason is. And by facing that conflict head on, by having that difficult conversation, you can move your workplace into being a more effective and humane and collaborative space. So those are my thoughts, and I'm going to turn it over to the rest of our great panel.
Thank you so much, Professor Sarah. You've actually laid out a plan for a conflict resolution. Thank you so much. And we'll have, I'm sure we'll have a number of questions for you towards the end. And now I would like to invite Professor Kiyomi Deards, who is at the University Libraries Faculty Chair, Associate Professor at University Libraries, University of Nebraska, University in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I believe Health Equity in Academic Libraries, not just for those we serve. That's something that she's worked on. Professor Kiyomi Deards, please welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm going to respond a little to the end of what Sarah was saying before I go through the rest in somewhat order. But I think there is a lot of unnecessary drama, and that does cause a lot of wellness issues. But one thing that I like to emphasize when I am presenting, especially about health equity in the workplace, or talking about disabilities in the workplace or for our patrons, is that there's a lot of people who feel that they are owed an explanation because they don't understand. And that is a mindset that causes a lot of psychological harm and long-term trauma, because people feel that they are being forced to justify who they are and what they need. And that is completely unfair. It's important when someone expresses a need or that they can't do something to focus on active listening instead of reacting and helping to meet the person's needs, not your own understanding of the person's unique circumstances. If someone says, I can't do something, you might ask them why, because you don't know why they can't do it. It may be a health reason. It could be you double scheduled them and they have another meeting at the same time. You won't know why until you ask. There may be a way that they can do it, and you could ask them, is there a way that we can make it so that you could do this? You know, they may need a very small accommodation. When I first started thinking about maybe doing research into health equity, it was very interesting. My direct supervisor told me that she'd had a lot of cases of people who worked in libraries. She'd been an administrator for about 20 odd years at that point. And in most of those cases, she was able to accommodate people by either switching the time which they worked, because their work was not time sensitive, or with some minor accommodation that cost her $100 or less one time by buying them a piece of equipment. But as I started to do this work, I started getting immense pushback from deans and directors. And that was because they felt that this was not an important topic. And I think that they didn't want to address it, right? Because they were afraid, because we don't talk about health and wellness very much, unless we're talking about going on diets, the latest fad exercise and things like that. You know, there are health and wellness programs, but they're basically targeted at people who are able-bodied and keeping them that way. But the reality is that as we get older, people have more health problems. There is a perception from a lot of people that if you are not able-bodied, that you caused it and that you did something wrong. And there's a lot of shame around health needs, and because we don't talk about it. So, you know, this is not, of course, good for wellness, because you shouldn't be feeling shame about something that you have no control over. There's a quote I really liked from someone named Ben Andrews wrote on Twitter last year, and he said, "Disabled people shouldn't only be expected to access services or offers with words disabled, disability, or inclusive in them. Disabled people should be able to access whatever they want. That's what we should be working towards." And the reason that he says working towards as opposed to always having it is that depending on your disability, there may be things that you will never be able to do because it would be hazardous to your health. I would never be able to work in a zoo because I am highly allergic to animals. That would be not just not a good idea, it would endanger my life. That would be a crazy profession for me to have. You know, it's like if you were a vampire, you wouldn't want to have a profession, right, where you were filling up vials of holy water, right? Because then you'd splash it on yourself and you'd discorporate and you'd be dead. Like, that's a crazy profession. So keeping these things in mind, we want to think about how we can enable people to do their work and be present regardless of what their personal health circumstances are. And sometimes it's the person's, and sometimes it's their family. Sometimes it's their child, sometimes it's their partner, sometimes it's their parents. You just don't know. And our policies in today's workplace are not very accommodating to people. The amount of sick leave that most people in the United States have, for those of you who are not here, is usually between 5 and 10 working days a year. 7 to 10 days is pretty normal in industry, and it's not that unusual even in academic libraries. I'm very fortunate that I work at a university that grants faculty members 6 months of sick leave a year. People are always shocked by that. I was very shocked myself. A lot of people have said, yeah, but the first time someone takes it, everyone will lose it. And that's not true. We actually do have people take it every year. A lot of the time it is someone who is later in their career or maybe mid-career that had a disabling event. And sometimes people are able to come back after 6 months. And sometimes people spend the 6 months before they go on disability or before they retire having health procedures done, and they are paid for all of that time. It's one of the benefits that we use to recruit. But it takes an immense psychological burden off of people like me who have a lot of doctor's appointments. I was recruited for an associate dean position at a university, and I wrote the person a 3-page paper telling them why I could never, ever consider that job offer. It was a recruiting firm. And it was because of the sick leave policies of the university. The university's policy across the board for faculty and staff was that you earned 2 days of sick leave a year. I have 5 specialists that I have to see every year to maintain my health. And some of them I have to see multiple times a year. Sometimes I get away with a year where I only have 5 doctor's appointments, but it's not unusual for me to have 20 or 30 between doctors and physical therapists and things like that. And if I only had 2 days of sick leave, I couldn't even probably go through all the new appointments and assessments it would take for me to transfer my specialist to start the job. So there was literally no point in me taking it. And I decided to enumerate all those ways in which I could not do that job, and neither could anybody else who had a significant number of health conditions. It's a tricky thing because as managers, you should not be asking people for the details of their health situations. If the person wants to volunteer it, they can, but they should always be let know that they don't have to. It is that person's choice whether to disclose or not. I personally choose to disclose because in my research and in talking with other people, I found that people are more sympathetic and understanding if they know why you're gone. But I've also found that a lot of the conflict that comes about when people are missing work is not because of the person, but it's because of poor management on the part of their supervisor who does not let people know when there's a change in who's doing the work. So, you know, if I'm gone, somebody needs to take over my job duties. Some of them, like my personal research and creativity stuff, that it doesn't matter. If I'm not there, it's just not going to get done, right? But I do a lot of collection development work. So if I am gone, then people need to know who's going to do collections if I'm the only one doing it, right? In a specific area. If you as a supervisor don't tell people what the new pathways are for getting things done, that creates conflict because now I'm out. It's not my job to communicate that, but people think I'm not doing my job because I'm not there and all they see is my away message, right? But if you're my supervisor and I'm going to be gone unexpectedly, then you should be telling people that for now or till this date or whatever the circumstances, so-and-so will be doing X and should be contacted instead of me, right? Like people need to know what those work pathways are and we can avoid a lot of the conflict that comes around by doing that. There's also the problem that there are people who retaliate against people who disclose. And that's the biggest reason why a lot of people won't. I'm a lot more secure in my job because I have tenure. I have developed a good reputation at the university. And for me, my health decline was gradual. So over time, I just started off needing very little accommodation. It just kind of built up over the years. But this allowed me to build a history where people saw that whether I was there at work, I was still in person, I was still getting my work done, and that these accommodations just allowed me to continue doing my work. And so it wasn't all at once. But if you think about it, most of us in our workday, no one is standing over us, making sure that our work gets done, right? Most librarians, to a certain extent, work fairly independently, even if we have quotas. And so thinking about these things, I think it's important to realize that people are generally not micromanaged and don't need to be. And, people are like, well, if you're not here, how do I manage your productivity? Well, you weren't standing over me anyway. You still see how much I get out, output I have and scholarly, and do I accomplish my work on time and things like that. So I think those are really important things to think about. And I want to leave time for everyone else. But I would just like to end on talking about the realities of having a disability, whether it's short-term or long-term. And it's challenging, it's stressful, it's expensive, it's painful, it's time-consuming, and it's boring. On the plus side, though, people who are dealing with these situations and have for a long term, they're excellent problem solvers because they have to be just to live their life. They have to get good at communicating because otherwise they will not get the care that they need. You have to become good at time management and self-reflective. Almost everybody that I've ever met that is deals with any disability for a long period of time becomes excellent at time management because we have to start things early to make sure that we're done on time. And we very, very rarely have to ask for an extension because we planned ahead and we're mindful of what we could accept and what we could do. And I think that if we think about how could we enable more people to do things, then we would have a kinder society. And sometimes that means, as Sarah said, saying that, you made these cuts and we can't do these things. And I think that's very, very important.
Thank you so much, Professor Kiyomi. You touched on disabilities. I was in the Middle East recently, and they don't, and especially in, I believe it's Dubai or Sharjah, they don't call them people with disabilities, they call them people with determination. How interesting, they turned the word around from disabilities to people of determination or people with determination. Moving on, let me invite Danielle McGhee. Danielle, she's the division manager at Austin History Center, Austin, Texas. She was previously the director of Library and Media Services at Houston Tillotson University. And without much ado, let me welcome Danielle McGhee. Danielle, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here to learn from you all, but also to share some of my experiences of, just leading a staff in with wellness practices. As you mentioned, I'm currently the division manager at the Austin History Center with Austin Public Library. I've been in this role for about 4 months, so I am still learning how the city works versus from academia. So a lot of the information that I will share will be from the perspective of my role in my academic position, but I also will touch a little bit upon some of the things that I'm implementing into my new role here with my staff. And I just want to thank all the previous speakers as well. I've learned so much within this last hour that I think will benefit me in this new role as I work with not only myself, but with my staff. And I think it's very important to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves in preserving ourselves in the ways that we can also share and create space to help other people. And I also believe that a lot of the work that we do, based on what Kamori said and Sarah, it's that a lot of it comes down to communication and making sure that we have effective communication practices in place and have that skill set. But one of the things that I wanted to touch upon, especially as we have transitioned from, I call it, we still are in the pandemic, but I call it the core part of the pandemic when we were in 100% like lockdown mode. I can talk more about the practices that I implemented during that time. And I think it was very important for me to communicate to my staff that they did have a safe space to talk to me about if they were having mental health issues or if they were needing accommodations, to know that they had trust in me to have those conversations. I think that sometimes in some work places, you might not necessarily feel like you can trust whatever systems are in place to support you. And I wanted to make sure that we, had weekly check-ins. At this point it's virtual. So just making sure that we were checking in, asking them, how they were doing before we got into okay, well, this is what we need to work on this week, or these are the practices or the projects we need to work on, just making sure that we checked in mentally and emotionally first, and making sure that they felt safe in communicating with me. I was very intentional about our schedule. We definitely worked with, as we transitioned back into, on-site, being mindful of our schedule, communicating with my admins that, I was going to do something different with my team. Not everyone has the autonomy to do that, but I'm grateful that I did, and making sure that we had our services covered. But with having services covered, just making sure that we had a schedule where certain folks can work from home, whereas certain folks could work on site, and just being flexible with our schedule and working with everyone, and making sure that they were taking the days to ease themselves back into working on site full time. And I think that was definitely helpful. I could see from the team when they were feeling a little bit burned out, from being on site as we were transitioning back full time. And so I think that's where observation, but also checking in with your team to see, do we need to do 2 days off a week, or is 1 day off, or, some of the staff did not like working from home. So, just knowing that certain folks wanted to be on site full time because they were more productive in that way, and just creating a schedule around that. The other thing that I really had to focus on was realigning our priorities. Every year we had team priorities, and we do have goals and objectives and outcomes, But when we're talking about human beings, their safety, their health, their wellness, in this particular situation, I thought it was really important to realign our priorities and making sure that everyone had, accommodations with their technology, working from home, if they needed effective workspaces at home, that they had those things taken care of. But also the work slowed down, and we had to realign, okay, what's important, what services do we really need to highlight to make sure that if our students, patrons at the time, if they need access to resources, what are the tools that we can highlight to make those things accessible for our end users, and that was something that we really had to kind of scale up versus the SACS COC accreditation report. I mean, we still worked on those things, but we had to make sure that we were meeting our users immediately with the resources that we had. So we had to, be adaptable and flexible and realign our priorities in that way. And in my new position, one of the things that I communicate with the team here, when I first started, we were still transitioning from working from home on-site to on-site. I think our facility was open 2 days a week versus 6 days a week. And so once we opened 6 days a week, one of the things that I had to communicate with the team was that, everyone was kind of getting stressed out and they felt the pressure of being back on site. And I think this is where the hard conversations come in of asking, where is that pressure coming from? Because it's not coming from me. So they had to have the internal conversations of where the pressure is coming from, but also thinking about, I had to have them reflect on the lessons that were learned during, the core part of the pandemic. What lessons were learned. One of the things that I think about is, how important relationships are. When you don't have anything else, when everything is shut down, relationships are very important. And making sure that you nurture the relationships with the people that you love and develop those relationships. That was something that was important for me. And being that I was in transition from one job to another, one of the things, I got overwhelmed with thinking about, okay, I have to close things up at this particular job to transition to the new job. It can get overwhelming, but I had to sit down with myself and ask myself, okay, Danielle, what was the lesson that you learned? Make sure you prioritize that. The work is going to be here. You can execute your plan and your objective and the new things you want to accomplish, but you have to really remember to prioritize the things that really matter and the things that you learn, during the core part of the pandemic. And even before that, I think the lessons that were learned during that core part of the pandemic are things that maybe we should have been focusing on, but we just had more time to think about those things. And so those are some things that I asked the team here to really reflect on, are the lessons that were learned, and making sure that they're prioritizing those things in their workflows, depending on what that looked like for them. And I also really encourage the staff here to use their benefits, whether you're in academia or you're working with your city or whatever the benefits are. If you need to make sure that you are, using the counseling, if you have EAP, like you're using those benefits. I know with the city here, we have a PE program, like a wellness program. So being intentional about utilizing that resource. And there was one other thing I wrote down here, but I have the previous speaker's notes written all over my notes, but give me 1 second. Where did I write that? Oh, here, we have a safety coordinator as well. So with our safety coordinator, he focuses primarily on ergonomics and making sure that the staff have the resources and tools to work effectively here on site, especially after transitioning from working from home back in the office. we do have those resources. And so those are some of the things that I do encourage the team to tap into, the resources that and the benefits that we have here in this role. So ultimately, I think a lot of the things that my key points, it really boils down to communication and being mindful of the staff and utilizing the resources that we have available to have effective workflows and with implementing the health and wellness of productivity with the staff here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. You touched again, all of you have been so amazing at touching some important, very important points in our discussion. So I will open up for any questions from the floor. Anybody who would like to ask any questions, please feel free, or you can mention the question in the chat box here. But let me start by asking, we have talked about individuals, we have talked about organizations, but let me ask, how do you balance, as an organization, all members of within the organization, whether you are a frontline worker or you are in management, how do you balance the needs of the individuals and the needs of the organizations? Because sometimes, there's a lot of struggle between these two. Anybody would like to take it?
I can certainly share my thoughts briefly. I think it's a tension, speaking as somebody in a leadership, my role there, and I see Danielle and Kiyomi both nodding along. As leaders, on paper, are, if I can be forgiven for quoting Star Trek here, our first duty is to the ship. Our first duty is to making sure that the organization as a whole, the library as whole, is strong and goes forward. And sometimes that means making unpleasant decisions for a part of the organization in an effort to make sure that the organization as a whole thrives. But at the same time, you can only thrive as an organization if you have good people who are all in a trusting, psychologically safe relationship where they can raise problems, concerns, they can have conflict, and you can work through the problems you need so that collaboratively you come to a better decision than any of you, the boss included, might have gotten to individually. And that's why I see leadership as kind of this situation where you have to make decisions that are weighing being humane, being effective, and being collaborative. Those are the three pieces I see to leadership. And I think when you're thinking about wellness at the organizational level, you need to figure out what are the systems that you can put into place to basically make it a culture and organization that is going to foster wellness in the service of making sure everybody is effective, they need to be at their jobs, and also has that collaborative element of everybody is welcome, everybody is has a voice at the table, and everybody's gifts are valued, and also that everybody has a voice in what the common vision of the organization is. Because when everybody has buy-in, when everybody's strengths and weaknesses and challenges and differences are brought in, then it becomes a safer organization, a more trusting organization, and a healthier organization.
Thank you. Yes, Danielle or Kiyomi, please.
Yeah, I think that libraries need to not overbook themselves. That is usually why people are treated terribly, because a library is trying to do more than they have the people to do. And a lot of that happens when you don't build in redundancy and when you don't help people collaborate on things. My husband likes to call it having the recipe for ice cubes. If ice is important to what you do, and only one person knows how to make ice cubes and no one else is ever trained, that person can never take time off, they can never be sick, and they'll always be expected to work overtime, which is, of course, not fair, right? And it's also not sustainable. The person will get tired of it and they will find another job, and then you'll have no one who knows how to do it. In libraries, you know, a lot of the creative activities that I do are actually events, but I make it so that the events are planned so much in advance that there are so many people that have the plan that if I can't make it at the last minute, it can still go on and no one will be stressed, right? Because I already had a backup in place. And I encourage other people to do the same with their planning. The only reason that we cancel events, and we are perfectly willing to do it, is if like this, there's a speaker and the speaker can't do it. You know, if we have activities, usually we try to have multiple activities from multiple groups, even if it's just 2 or 3, so that if something happens with one group, this event can still go on. And so that kind of redundancy, it's a different type than people usually think of when they think about redundancy, helps us keep things going while also being able to say, you know what, you're sick. You are not coming. We are canceling your part, right? Because we already had a plan B in place in case something happened to them. Occasionally it'll happen with a solo speaker that we have to cancel. I had a speaker who said, I just had my wisdom teeth extracted, but I can come tomorrow and speak at your thing. And I said, no, we're just going to cancel. We will just have you, you know, later in the fall. And they were very shocked, but I was like, I'm not making someone high on pain medication after oral surgery give a talk. It's not that important. You know, this is not going to save anyone's life. It is not going to hurt anybody's health if you do not give this talk, and we can do it at a little later date. And I think we really need to examine what things we do. You know, it's okay if once during a semester we have 3 people out and there's no one to close the building late, you know, because somebody's already done it, you know, like 5 times and they actually need to be able to sleep. We could say, you know, for one day, we will just not be able to be open quite as long. For this one day, the world will not end, because that would let that person get sleep and hopefully, you know, get people back. You have to ask yourself, how long-term is this like need that stretches someone? If it's like the first 2 weeks of school every semester, that's fine, right? It's a short amount of time. They could either be paid overtime or they could have comp time, but there's like a way you could accommodate that person, right? So that they're not cheated out of their rest long-term. But if it is like more weeks than not, then that is something that as a leader, and it's as an organization that you have to address and make stop, because it shouldn't be all the time. It should be at certain very specific times of year, or because there was something unusual and you had like 4 people out and you had no coverage because most of the people were gone from your department.
Thank you so much. I believe there's got to be a very fine balance between the needs of the organization and the needs of the staff, the individuals. Coming to you know, the many dimensions wellness has, such as physical, spiritual, mental, financial. So what do you think are the benefits of having wellness programs? I mean, there are so many wellness programs, you know, organized by so many different organizations and institutions. How beneficial are they, and what are some of suggestions that you may have, you know, for these such wellness programs to occur in an organization? Maybe Danielle, you want to take on that first?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I do know that, you know, with the city of Austin here, we do have a wellness program. It's called a PE program. So we do have that where, I mean, I think it's every quarter we have a different list of activities or type of, you know, wellness, whether it's like yoga, meditation, or going to play basketball, or going to I think they have like a rowing group you can sign up for, and I think those things are really important to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies, because we naturally feel better if we're doing something physical and moving our bodies. It helps us think better, we're more alert, we sleep better. I think it contributes to just our whole well-being of life. And we have also this benefit where if we, you know, are doing our wellness checkups, physicals, we do get one day, like we get 8 hours. It's called a wellness day. So we do have that benefit where we can take off, you know, if we complete the tasks that are listed to check off our wellness plan. So that is something that our staff takes advantage of. And but I think I'm a spiritual person. I'm a religious person as well. I think some environments allow for you to tap into that part of yourself and some don't, you know, whether it's a private or public sector entity. But I definitely think that whether you find your group of people who have similar beliefs or who want to practice what you practice throughout the day is also, I think, just as important. Making sure that you're taking care of your spiritual and emotional needs as well. And I just think that's, you know, thinking from that vantage point, you know, I can get really deep into this, but I don't know how deep y'all want to get. But, you know, I think we're all spiritual beings. So I just feel like it's so important that we're taking care of our spirit, and because I think that just sets the tone for your whole day. That's just my thought, my belief. So, you know, in the morning, me personally, I just have my morning routine, my morning time where I'm really committed to just doing my mindful practices and my devotionals and doing those things so I can, my affirmations, so I can just mentally prepare myself for the day. And because I do have to make sure I'm taken care of so I can make sure I lead the team here effectively. So I'm grateful that we have, you know, counseling benefits, and we have wellness benefits here, because those are things I haven't taken advantage of it just yet, because I'm still working out my schedule. But in terms of my personal time before I come to work, those are things that I make sure that I take care of to make sure my mind is where it needs to be before I take on other people in the things that they need assistance with. So
thank you, Danielle. Sarah, Kiyomi, you want to jump in with some suggestions?
So I think that they can be very effective, but they can also be very ineffective. And the difference that I've seen is when people do not allow their employees to make time to make use of them. So if your wellness programming is always at the same time and your business or your library is not closed during that time, some people will always be excluded. There are some supervisors who encourage everybody to do it and all their people participate. And there are others who are like on them if they're not like looking at their computer screen all the time, right? I mean, we even have this difference of supervisors in my library, depending on like who you work with. And so in order to have an effective program, the organization has to make it very clear to supervisors that everybody is expected to participate if they so choose, and that they be given us like the time to do so as part of their job. And that, you know, the 2 things or 5 things they would have gotten done if they hadn't, you know, gone to that programming are fine. And that's just how it is always going to be. Places where people accrue points and extra benefits, like an extra day off or an extra 2 days off, their wellness programs are really effective because everybody is expected to do it, and there's like prizes for doing it, right? Like they're incentivizing doing it. And some people will say, well, why should we pay people to do what they should be doing? And the reality is we spend so much time working and prepping for work and thinking about, as Sarah said, how are we going to have that difficult conversation in not work hours? Like people are more than getting compensated than working their 40 hours a week. I don't think there's very many people who don't work more hours than they have on paper because they're thinking about work and how they're going to do stuff at work so many hours when they're not. And so giving people all the time in their workday while they're being paid to take a break, to meditate, to go for a walk, all those things have been shown in research studies to improve concentration and creativity. And people who don't do them, they can find themselves spinning their wheels for several hours trying to solve a problem. But if you take that 15-minute break, if you take that hour break, probably you'll come back and solve the problem, or you'll have talked to someone in passing for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and solved your problem. And now you can move on, and you didn't spend half a day trying to solve this one tiny problem.
And if I can piggyback on Kiyomi here, I think you said something a couple of very important things that I kind of want to build on. The first is that I think wellness programs are very well and good, but I think that also an organization needs to make space for people to practice wellness as they define it. My wellness is not necessarily invoked by going and having some mandatory session on mindfulness that HR has put on. Nothing wrong with HR, they're all wonderful people. But if I could just step out for half an hour and walk around my beautiful campus here in North Philly and clear my brain, I'm going to be a lot more effective making decisions when I come back. That is my flavor of wellness. And also, I think that those of us in leadership positions have a special obligation to model wellness and to model boundaries with our team. It becomes that much harder for our people to say, hey, I need to work from home, or I need to take care of this or that, that if they are not seeing you do those same things, of you saying, I've got this big report to take care of this week. I don't have any meetings today. I'm going to work from home today just so I can, focus. Or, I don't have much on my calendar. I've got some leave I need to blow. I'm going to take a mental health day. You need to model those things for your people so that they feel comfortable taking care of themselves as well. It has to be more than lip service. You're muted.
You're muted.
It's not a Zoom call unless somebody's muted.
You're still muted. Yeah, you're still muted.
Oh, my apologies. I just realized that I was muted. How interesting. So I know I'm mindful of time. We are, coming very close to closing our session. But if there's anybody from the floor that would like to ask a question or questions, please feel free. Nobody? No? I have a number of questions, but I'm so sorry. This has been such an enlightening session. We have discussed about some strategies, some do's and don'ts, some suggestions, both for the organizations, to the individuals, conflict resolution. That was so beautiful, Sarah. Kiyomi, the way you explained the challenges, and how to look at issues. There are times people have disabilities. So this has been a wonderful session. Danielle, thank you so much, all of you, for enlightening us on this topic. And before we end here, one thing that has been evident in our discussion has been the importance to be aware that wellness is intentional. It has to be ongoing. It is a holistic approach to making healthy choices to our lives. It's a continuous process, we know that. And we all need to be aware and exercise our right to be well and healthy. It is so important and incumbent on us to keep ourselves healthy. And so, I know we are getting very close to time. I will invite Dr. Mohammed Tahir, who is the driving force behind CEED, to make some concluding remarks. And thank you so much, our panelists. You know, this has been an entirely knowledgeable and enlightening session that the three of you and Imam Abdur Rashid has brought to the topic. Thank you so much. And I take it to Dr. Mohammed Tahir.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul Hamid, and thank you, friends. Great speakers, great inspirers, and great motivators. And I would like to add, you are great movers and shakers. Thank you very much. Your presence and your messages are so strong. I couldn't complete typing down all the messages you were trying to convey and the points that you're trying to convey. They are so deep, so comprehensive that I don't have time in a second to write down all those in even my stenographic old skills. Thank you very much. I am now honored to be able to sum up this discussion on wellness, where I would like to highlight that the information professions, libraries, archives, museums, and communities are engaged into it. I'm not the one first time talking about it. There are so many speakers, there are so many writers, there are so many webinars. But what I'm trying to bring is a specific context, and let me move on to that. If, for example, state-of-the-art research that I did shows me a sample of libraries in Canada and US being surveyed for what kind of movement-based programs they have, what kind of like yoga, dance, or whatever the kind of movement programs that libraries encourage for the staff. And this is a survey that has been done from US and Canada. And the next slide is an example of museums that have done the study of what human conditions are for health, wellness, emotion in museums. And then the next one is about the archives, which tells you the best thing that I would like to convey is the laughter. The level of comfort is what informs our advocacy work. And this is the best part of the wellness program that doesn't cost anything, doesn't require a financial budgeting headache. It doesn't require the management to interfere. Me as an individual can do many things. Me as a team player can do many more things than that's possible in the organization. So I am not the initiator of this wellness program, and we are not the first time talking about it. We are just the torch bearers for something more specific. Let me come to that. I have the 5 laws of library science which are applied to health and wellness with an idea model. For example, I have 5 ideas with 5 laws of library science. The laws were coined in 1930, and today I adapt them to the wellness and health issues. Number 1 is information is inclusively available to all staff for self-care. Number 2, diversity exists among staff and yet recognized as they are as whole person. Number 3, emphatically reach out when they are looking at the holistic requirements of the wellness. Number 4, save the time of the staff, not just the users, by providing equitable and fair dealing with the information, and even if it is pandemic or any other time. This reminds me the last webinar we had was on mindfulness of the staff during trauma as pandemic or any kind of turbulence. And if you would like to listen to that, we have it on the YouTube, the webinar series 3, and that you can look at the details of how we discuss the topic. The last bullet here is about accessible and barrier-free to each and every staff for working in a holistic situation, where the 5 laws had interpreted to understand wellness in the terms of idea, like idea for I for inclusiveness, D for diversity, E for equity, A for accessibility. I have my whole life going on with these 5 laws, but I will not continue and waste your time right now. But that's enough for the thought for the day, to think about the applicability of the idea as a holistic approach, not individual approach, which I'm trying to focus on. And we will be at CEED trying to further develop the idea of holistic information, holistic process, holistic concern, holistic attention to the institutional and individual concerns and needs. To sum up, I have 5 or 4 tips to take home. Number 1 is browse a mile in your colleague's shoes. I have borrowed this quote, it's not mine. It's from Public Library's online magazine. They had a slightly different version. But here I say, browse a mile in your colleague's shoes. The second bullet is follow the rule of 2020 for digitally engaged health and wellness. Digitally engaged 2020 rule says, when you have spent 20 minutes on the machine, on the computer, staring, glaring, and whatever, take 20 seconds to see other side of the world, other than the digital world. Number 3 is remember the rule of 80-20 for self-care. That is, achieve more with less in hand. You may not be able to get everything, so it's 80-20. It's not 100% capability. It's 80-20, where you have less, but you can achieve more by your own imagination, by different ways. And I don't have time to explain it all in detail. The last bullet is about mindfulness of 50-50, wherein you think of others as you are, as you expect yourself to be treated, following the golden rule of reciprocity, whether it is in grief or joy or planning anything. For example, in grief, you have a colleague who is from a different culture. How would you deal with that person, and how would you react to that person's needs, desires, demands, expectations? The culture is different. When somebody dies in that culture, how do they deal with? I don't know. So as librarians or information professionals, we should be able to read a book called, it's in my library here, The Perfect Stranger. That's the title of the book, Perfect Stranger. So this is a book that is used by us as a textbook for chaplains in training them to be good to understand the other. So this is the 4th bullet about being mindful of the 50-50 rule, where you are 50 only, not you are 100, but you are 50 because of the team spirit. You need to be accommodative and others need to accommodate you. That is 50-50. And thank you very much for this time. Thank you very much for your presence. And I really appreciate all the time that you have devoted to the subject of bringing wellness and health in the context of conversation series. The series that we have been doing is continuous. It's a dialogue for the professionals, dialogue for everyone to be thinking about the options, thinking about the opening of newer venues, newer avenues of research and study and practice. At the end, I have to say that this recording will be posted on the YouTube in a day or 2, and the handout is available. And so the survey for this post-webinar, if you can fill in this survey, it will be good for us to plan the next year's step in terms of planning and direction that we can move on. Any questions for me? Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot for your help, support, and holy presence. Thank you.
Thank you. See you all later. Nice meeting you.
Welcome.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Taid, for the organization.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.